There are 4 foods sitting in your fridge right now that could be quietly working against you every single time you microwave them. Not because of some wild internet myth, but because of actual chemistry happening on a molecular level. And the wild part? Almost nobody knows about the 4th one. Even people who consider themselves healthy eaters are doing this multiple times a week without realizing it. I'm Dr. KD Jivan, and today we're breaking down exactly which foods you should stop reheating, why it happens, and more importantly, what you can do instead so you're not just tossing perfectly good leftovers in the trash out of fear. Because that's not the goal here. The goal is understanding your food, not being scared of it. So let's get into it. Let's start with the one that surprises people the most: rice. Plain, boring, sitting in a container rice. Here's what's actually going on. Raw rice can carry spores of a bacteria called Bacillus cereus. These spores are incredibly tough. Cooking rice doesn't necessarily kill them, it just knocks them into a dormant state. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you cook a batch of rice and then leave it sitting out at room temperature for a few hours before refrigerating it, those spores wake up. They germinate and they start producing toxins. And this is the part that trips people up. The bacteria itself might get killed when you reheat the rice, but the toxins? Those are heat stable. Reheating doesn't destroy them. So you can nuke that rice for 5 minutes at full power and still get hit with vomiting and diarrhea a few hours later. A condition some doctors have nicknamed fried rice syndrome because it shows up so often with takeout-style fried rice left out overnight. The fix isn't never eat rice again. It's simple. Cool your rice quickly, get it into the fridge within about an hour of cooking, and only reheat it once. Now stick with me, because food number 2 on this list is one that even I was surprised by when I first started digging into the research, and it involves a vegetable most of us consider one of the healthiest things we can eat. Let's talk about spinach and leafy greens in general, along with some root vegetables like beets and celery. These foods are naturally high in nitrates, which on their own aren't dangerous. In fact, nitrates from vegetables get a lot of attention in cardiovascular research for their potential to support blood flow. But here's the catch. When these nitrate-rich vegetables are cooked, then left out, then reheated, especially more than once, those nitrates can convert into nitrites, and under the right conditions, nitrites can further convert into compounds called nitrosamines. And nitrosamines are the category of compound that's actually been studied in relation to certain cancer risks, primarily because of how they interact with cells over long-term, repeated exposure. Now, I want to be really clear here, because this is where a lot of channels get it wrong and just scream cancer without context. We're not talking about eating spinach once and suddenly being at risk. We're talking about the specific pattern of cooking, storing at room temperature, and reheating, sometimes more than once, that allows this chemical conversion to build up over time. The practical takeaway is almost stupidly simple. If you're making a big batch of spinach or beet-based dishes, portion it out, refrigerate quickly, and try to only reheat what you're going to eat that sitting. And this is actually a perfect moment to pause for a second, because if you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who actually wants the real explanation instead of just the scary headline. And that's exactly the kind of person this channel is for. So if that sounds like you, hitting subscribe means you won't miss the next breakdown like this one. Okay, back to the list. Because food number 3 is one you've probably reheated in the last 7 days without thinking twice about it. Potatoes. Specifically, potatoes that have been cooked and then left at room temperature before refrigeration. Think about that leftover baked potato sitting on the counter, or potato salad that didn't quite make it back to the fridge in time. Potatoes are a low-acid, moisture-rich food, and when they're wrapped in foil or sealed while still warm, they create what's essentially a perfect little pocket for a different bacteria to thrive in, Clostridium botulinum. This one sounds scarier than the rice situation, and honestly, it kind of is, because botulism, while rare, is serious. The bacteria loves airless, low-oxygen environments, which is exactly what you get when you wrap a hot potato tightly in foil and let it sit out. Reheating can help reduce risk, but it doesn't guarantee safety if the food has already been sitting in that danger zone, generally considered to be room temperature for more than about 2 hours. So here's the actual fix. If you're wrapping potatoes in foil after cooking, don't let them sit out. Refrigerate promptly. And when you do reheat them, make sure they're heated all the way through, not just warmed on the outside. Now, food number 4. This is the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the one almost nobody talks about, And it's not even really about bacteria this time. It's about oil. Cooking oils that have already been heated once, especially oils used for frying, go through a process called oxidation every time they're reheated. When oil is repeatedly exposed to high heat, it breaks down and forms compounds like aldehydes and, in some cases, trans fats that weren't there originally. This matters most with dishes that were deep-fried or pan-fried in a significant amount of oil, then reheated at high temperatures. Think leftover fried chicken, French fries, or anything cooked in oil that's been reused multiple times before you even got to eat it the first time. The research on repeatedly reheated oils has linked long-term consumption to inflammation and increased oxidative stress in the body, which over years, not one meal, years, has been associated with elevated cardiovascular risk. This is genuinely one of those the dose makes the poison situations. One reheated leftover isn't rewriting your health. But if reheating oily, fried foods in the microwave or on high heat is a weekly habit, that's where it's worth paying attention. A simple swap here. Reheat fried foods in an oven or air fryer at a moderate temperature instead of blasting them in a pan on high heat, which minimizes further oxidation compared to refrying or high heat searing. So let's zoom out for a second, because I promised you at the start that this wasn't going to be a video that just makes you scared of your own fridge. Here's the actual pattern connecting all four of these. It's not really about the microwave. Genuinely, in almost every case here, the danger isn't the reheating itself. It's what happened before the reheating. It's food sitting out too long. It's food cooling too slowly. It's oil being reused past its usable life. The reheating step just happens to be the moment where all of that catches up with you, which honestly should make you feel a little less anxious, not more, because it means the fix isn't stop eating leftovers. It's handle your leftovers a little smarter. Cool food quickly. Refrigerate promptly. Don't let things sit at room temperature for hours. Reheat thoroughly, not just until it's lukewarm. And when it comes to oils specifically, don't reuse them more than once or twice, especially for high heat frying. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes knowing the why behind stuff like this instead of just being handed a list of rules, go ahead and drop a comment telling me which one of these four surprised you the most, because I read every single one, and it genuinely shapes what I cover next. Was it the rice? The spinach? I'm guessing for a lot of you, it was the potato one, because that's the one people never see coming. And speaking of things people never see coming, there's actually a fifth food I almost put on this list, one that has nothing to do with bacteria or oxidation, and everything to do with how certain proteins physically change structure when they're reheated multiple times, to the point where your body has a harder time breaking them down efficiently. I didn't include it here because it honestly deserves its own full breakdown. The research on it is more nuanced than a quick mention could do justice to. But if you want to know what it is, that's coming in the next video, so make sure you're subscribed so it actually shows up in your feed instead of getting buried. Because at the end of the day, none of this is about fear. It's about understanding what's actually happening on your plate, so you can make small, smart adjustments instead of overhauling your entire diet based on a scary headline. I'm Dr. KD Jivan. Thanks for sticking around for this one. I'll see you in the next video, where we finally talk about that fifth food nobody's mentioning.